Generational trauma. In order to get this point across, I figure we should probably start with the best way I can figure out the definition of it. And in order to do that, it's a little complicated because giving just one blanket definition to this is not doing it justice, I would say. I'll give you a synopsis of the definition. Something traumatic in your past, or someone you may be related to, or someone in your line of life having something done to them so traumatic that it takes generations to undo. So we're going to delve into a little bit of what it looks like. Okay, so if you're an individual that say that you're suffering from or you have generational trauma, I want you to try and walk with me just a little bit, partially so you can understand why some of us don't get it. And secondly, so you can weed through what you think is generational trauma and see if it's actually what you think it is. If I were to tell you a story about my mother, and it was a very unpleasant season in her life, and she went through some crazy stuff, and every day she woke up, she would tell me about the atrocities of this event. And she would tell me that this event shaped her life. And every day she got up, she did the exact same thing. After a while, me as an individual will start wearing her life on my heart. And to the point where if it hurts her that much, it must have to hurt me just as badly. But every day she gets up, she doesn't tell me about how she gets over it. She doesn't tell me that she's attempting to get over it. She just tells me about this event and tells me that this is what shaped her. Day in, day out for 30 plus years. Then I have a child. And I proceed to tell my child about the trauma that my mom's story did to me. And I regurgitate that story to my child every day. My child does it to their child. And so on, and so on, and so on. Do you think, just for a moment, that the trauma that you think you've endured is not yours? And with it not being yours, there is no need for you to carry it. Because if I saw you enduring the same thing, I could say, okay, definitely, they have a reason for being the way they are, feeling the way they feel, and acting the way they act. But if it never happened to you and you're only going by the daily stories of somebody that did endure it, in fact, you found out later that they didn't endure it, nor did the ones they heard it from or the ones that they heard it from. The last person to actually endure it was almost 3 people back. But you talk about it as though it is fresh to you and you're the one that endured it. And so in your mind, you are carrying it along like you should, and that you have no reason to let it go because it literally happened to you. But what if it didn't happen to you? Do you have the obligation to carry that? Or was it the obligation of the person who endured it to endure it and leave it, instead of putting it on the next person who has never endured it? And now you're forcing them to endure what you endured and carry that on and on and on and on. If anything, the true generational curse is in the hearing. That's what's actually cursing you, not the event that started the chain reaction. The subsequent people putting it on the next person, on the next person. That's the curse. The curse is not in the event. You are literally carrying it on, as you say, something that never happened to you. Now, I understand that a lot of humankind wants to have a story that's so endearing to them that people will look at them in 2 ways: sympathy or pride. They want people to look at them as a triumphant type deal or something to be feared. And if you can combine the two, you're really winning. Trauma enables that. Trauma enables you to say, hey, I've been through this, but the unfortunate thing though with generational trauma, you never get to the but. It keeps going on. in hopes that the "but I have" will show up. When is that going to show up? How many more generations have to hear the same story of something that their generation before them never went through for them to sober up and say, but why not make it this generation? Why not let go of what you think and your perceived hurt is and focus on what you can do now, what you are able to do now, by letting go of what you could never do? I mean, of course, you still have the obligation to do whichever you want to do and the right to do whatever you want to do. This is not a coercion tactic. Like I said at the beginning, you can think about it and see what it does for you. But what good is generational trauma doing for you now? Let's look at it that way. If you have it, are you taking active steps to get over generational trauma? Do you even consider it a problem, or is it a badge of honor for you now to say, look what we've been through? But understand this, if you have to tell me, look what you've been through, then the generational trauma has stopped. Look what I have been through, but then it's no longer traumatic to the point that it's keeping you stagnant. And if that's the case, stop holding on to what's not yours. That's theft. And don't tell me you want to inherit that. I don't know any sane human being that wants to inherit trauma. You're at an age now where information is boundless. Use the information to get over what you think you should not be getting over, because it's hampering you whether you see it or not. It's really limiting not just you, but it will limit your children and grandchildren, and possibly even more generations past that. If for no other reason, do this. At least look into it for the sake of the next generation. Because if you don't get it, they never will.